Good evening, everybody. It's Thursday, Necro Thursday, and we're back this week with the Necromaniacs Horror Podcast. How's it going, Mike?
It is going well. As you just heard Mr. Hill say, it is indeed Thursday, Necro Thursday. We're glad to have you with us on this horrific journey, if you will. Yeah, things are going good. It is March. The sun is going down at 7 o'clock, Mike Hill, which is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, the daylight savings operations going on right now.
It is underway. Yeah, it's even though it's still kind of cold and crappy and rainy and shit here in New York, New Jersey, but spring is in the air. I believe. Got to see Mike live and in person over the weekend on Friday night when we went to see Clan of Zymock and the Brooklyn Monarch, right, Mike?
That's right, man. It was actually a pretty busy weekend for shows. I know both of us went to a bunch of shows this weekend.
Yeah, Stella and I went to that show, and then we pulled the doubleheader, and on Saturday we went to Jersey to see Sick of It All and Life of Agony at Starland Ballroom in beautiful Sayreville, New Jersey, Mike Hill.
That's actually a hop, skip, and a jump from where I live. So yeah, but I was not present to that show because I went to Philly to see Rotting Christ, Gorilla, and Uwada, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
We are some show-going motherfuckers here at the Necromaniacs podcast. But yeah, both shows were good. The Goth show had a very hard stop at like 10 o'clock because there was some fucking dance party afterwards, which, it's happening so much lately. I guess, clubs are kind of doubling up on their weekend nights. Whatever, money is money, business is business. But I felt like before I knew it, the show was over. Huh, Mike?
It started so early, too, on a Friday, man. The first band went on at like 6:30 or something like that.
Yeah. I wanted to see Then Comes Silence, whom we actually caught some of them last fall when they played this goth festival, but we missed them entirely on Friday because they went on too fucking early,
They were actually on second, and I saw them because I knew I had to get there early. And
right.
Fridays are kind of like these days where I'm usually done by noon, so I was able to, rip a commute into the city real quick, and I got there. I still missed most of the first band, but they were actually really good. And then came Silence went on, and they were awesome. And then I can't remember the name of the third band, but
me neither. They were okay.
Yeah,
they were okay.
They were fine.
They weren't good. They were fine.
Then Zymox went on, and the place was packed by then. It was totally sold out.
Yeah. A lot of people came literally just as they hit the stage, and shit, it seemed like people came in the middle of their damn set, to be honest, which kind of is unfortunate. But Fridays can be tough. A lot of people work till 5 or 6 on a Friday, and if the show starts at 6, well, you're kind of screwed. You're only going to see some of the show. But yeah, fucking Saturday, man, the Life of Agony, Sick of It All show, Life of Agony are literally bigger than they've ever been in their 30-plus year career, which is no small feat. Not a lot of bands can kind of sustain like that, huh, Mike?
I know, man. It's cool to see them, playing these big ass shows like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was like 2,500 people there for them, and Sick of It All did great, but like Life of Agony was just like, whoa. It's amazing that I shared the stage with that band in front of like 100 people back in the day when I was in Confusion. It's pretty wild. And speaking of Confusion, see, Mike, I just did a little segue there.
Yeah, I see.
My prior band from the early 90s, the band was around from like 1990 to 1994. We have a discography coming out on Generation Records and Days Records, but the first single is out now. It came out on March 7th. The song is called Storm the Walls. So all you Necromaniacs out there, I need you, if you're Spotify listeners, to check it out. Put in Confusion, Storm the Walls, and follow that fucker. And consider it a little favor to old Mikey, huh, Mr. Hill?
That's right, man. I've been checking it out, and I'm obviously familiar with the band for many years now.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I can't wait for the record to come out.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Definitely excited about it. I've actually done some press for it. I'm doing another podcast for it tomorrow. I'm going to be on the This Is Hardcore podcast from out of Philly. Joe Hardcore does that. It's a really cool podcast. And so far, the response has been fucking really great, and makes me very happy.
Got to keep our eyes out for some shows too, I guess, man.
Yes, the answer is in very big letters, maybe. So that's the. It is a very big maybe. It is not a no. So that's as much as you're going to get right now. It's not a no. It's a very big maybe. So we'll see. And that's that.
Was there anything notable movie-wise that you caught recently?
Well, I was really digging The Last of Us, and that has wrapped up. Did you catch the final episode?
I did. And man, I'm looking forward to that second season.
Yes, I think anybody who might have been a little let down by an episode or two throughout this season one was probably happy with the blood and death feast of the final episode, and I think it ended really strong, and I think it sets up two really nice. And I mean, I don't play the video game; I've never played the game, but apparently, like the game ends like that, so that's kind of interesting, huh?
Well, the last two episodes have been pretty action-packed, actually.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I really thought about it, out of the 8 episodes, to me there was only like one episode where I was like, okay, this is really slow, and it was one of the ones told in flashback. But if I was giving it a Necromaniacs score of 5, I mean, the season gets a 4.5, honestly.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's just also like an emotional roller coaster, man. Just like the whole thing, like the whole story, everything is just so heartrending, really.
No, yeah. I mean, it's quite different from The Walking Dead. Although, look, there's similarities. I mean, come on, you can't deny the similarities. But ultimately, I think it's its own beast, and I think it's way more dramatic, honestly, and I think it's more. I don't know. I think there's more going on, maybe, and maybe the acting is just a little better. I mean, I don't know. I did really enjoy those early Walking Dead seasons, but I felt like The Last of Us kind of showed me something new and different.
Well, I think like the early Walking Dead seasons were really well acted and well written. Michael Rooker was on board. Like I thought
Yeah.
those OG episodes were great. But
Mm-hmm.
Pedro Pascal's the new it guy, I guess. Like he's not that he's new, but he's really come into his own with this has really improved his overall profile,
Yeah, and I've been watching the other show where he has to get someone to safety called The Mandalorian, and I tell you, it has been quite a time for Mr. Pedro Pascal between Mandalorian and Last of Us. I'm enjoying both shows.
Yeah, definitely.
But aside from that, I'm still plowing through my current Marvel era of Conan, which I've kind of landed on. I do like the story, but some of the art is not what I like. The art is a little, I don't know. It doesn't have that kind of professional, polished feel to it. To a lot of the stories, like it looks kind of like that. Conan looks little boyish look going on. You know what I'm
I
talking
hate
about?
that.
Like,
I hate it. It's like,
Yeah. Like he
yeah,
doesn't look like, I don't know. It's a certain drawing style that I think is probably very modern. But to me, as a 49-year-old, I see it and I go, yeah, this is not good at all. So, but I am enjoying the actual story, which is good. And they're not really skimping on the violence or anything. It's definitely, a Conan story, I would say. But yeah, the artwork is like, ugh, at times. So that's unfortunate.
I mean, I'm a huge fan. I definitely prefer the 70s and 80s Marvel era of Conan.
Mm, yeah,
And
yeah.
I just all of Robert E. Howard's stuff. King Kull, Bram Morn, Solomon Kane, like all that stuff is huge for me.
Mm. Um, so tonight, children, but wait a minute. I'm going to backtrack, Mike. We didn't do the plugs.
That's right. We did not. And there's another bit of news too. I just want to put that out there. We have a brand new phone number that you can call in and leave us a voicemail. We're trying to
Yes, old
go
school style.
retro.
Yeah.
Yeah, retro, like radio shows where you can call in and get your say your piece. So if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can hit us up at 908 913 0782. 908 913 0782. And that's a voicemail for Necromaniacs. And I'm not going to guarantee that we'll play your message on the show. It has to be entertaining. Abuse is fine, but yeah, just have at it. Anyone wants to leave us a voicemail, tell us, how good of a job we're doing or how we suck or all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, man.
Now, I got to tell you, I think this is a great idea, and I do hope we get some phone calls. And I have to say, I mean, we may even get some bizarre calls, maybe.
Oh,
And you know what? That's
yeah.
okay too.
Yeah, I mean, weird is fine. Absolutely. That's what I mean. As long as it's like something that has some entertainment value. That's like, or just honesty and entertainment value. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, you could call and say, you guys suck, and then just hang up. I mean, that's good too. I mean, that's
Yeah.
great.
Like a couple of those would be fine to play, but, after like you get like 100 of those, and it's like, all right, maybe we'll cherry pick the more creative ones.
That's true. That is true. But yeah, Necromaniacs podcast. We are part of a cabal, a crew, right, Mike? A
That's right.
crew
That's right.
podcast. The horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, would you say?
We're the podcasting Illuminati.
Indeed. Coming at you on Monday night, Mike. Who do we got on Monday?
Monday night, we got Horror Wolf 666 brought to you by Brandon Legion. And his podcast is also a horror podcast. But the subject of his is interviews with established directors and filmmakers and a bunch of up and comers too. So it's like gives you a wide variety of different guests. And also, we all guest on each other's shows, so you never know if you're going to run into one of us on Horror Wolf.
That is true. And coming to you on Tuesday night, we have Into the Necrosphere, one of the finest metal music podcasts out there, right, Mike?
I think it's the best, actually.
Uh-huh. Mr. Jackie Smith talking about, I would say, the heavier end of the spectrum, your death metal, your black metal, your thrash metal, But he'll talk about, Metallica. He'll talk about some mainstream stuff as well, right?
Yeah, Metallica is that's like a recurring subject on that show for definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always something to talk about. I mean, really. I mean, it's kind of always something to talk about in the Metallica camp. And then he has great interviews as well. You could discover a lot of really cool underground shit. And my personal favorite is towards the end of the show, the news segment. So, yes, check out Into the Necrosphere coming at you on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have none other than Mike Hill's very own Everything Went Black podcast, right, Mike?
Yeah, that's right, man. It's been quite a journey with that. Just recently, I was looking back to some of the older things I did, and I got to tell you, it's definitely a lot better now.
It's a lot better now. That's a good slogan. I mean, we could use that as a slogan for Necromaniacs and Everything Went Black.
It's a
It's a
lot
lot
better,
better now.
now.
Yeah. On Thursday, kids, we have Necromaniacs podcast. You're listening to it right now. Be sure to subscribe to it if you're not already subscribed on one of the many platforms from which we are on. On Friday, we have my flesh and blood, John Draper, with Break the Apocalypse for some comedic and social commentary. It's a great show. Be sure to check it out. On Saturday, take a break, go to a show, go to Sayreville, New Jersey, go to the lovely Starland Ballroom or something, go to the Brooklyn Monarch, go out and see life. But on Sunday, we have Carl Hikara's Soul Knox podcast. Mike, guess who was a guest on this most recent episode?
Well, I don't have to guess, Mike, because I know that you were on there this past week.
That's right. I was a guest on the Soul Knox podcast. Thank you very much, Mr. Carl. We had a good time talking about a lot of stuff, a lot of music, a lot of horror. Yeah, check out that podcast as well. And there you have the podcasting apocalyptic horseman. I played around with the wording there. I didn't put the words in order, but yeah, you should check it out. Check them all out.
And on to the show, man. So for tonight, interesting movie this evening, I think. We're going way back to 1972 with a movie that has two titles. One title
as a lot of 70s movies do, yes.
Yeah, it's known as Raw Meat or Death Track. Is that the other one?
Death Line. Death Line.
Death Line. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Raw Meat in the USA, but in the UK, it was Death Line, directed by none other than Gary Sherman. And folks, if you've been dedicated listeners, you will know that this is the third time we have covered a film by director Gary Sherman. The other two movies being Dead and Buried and a Necro favorite, a Necro Hall of Fame movie, Vice Squad. Right, Michael?
Vice Squad has given me hours and hours of entertainment over the course of my lifetime, man. I love that movie.
If you didn't hear our Vice Squad episode, go back and find it. It was a good one. If you haven't seen Vice Squad, strap yourself in. It is not an easy film, but I do think a lot of our listeners would dig it if they have not seen it, Mike.
It's on the sleazier end of the spectrum.
Yes. And I have to say, we had a good amount of people checking out the God's Lonely Man episode. One person chimed in on Instagram saying that they needed a shower after it. But I'm wondering what the general consensus was on that episode, because I mean, if you don't own the fucking DVD, or if you didn't physically, go to YouTube like you were directed, you can't see the movie, huh?
I ran into someone on Saturday down in Philly, actually. Shout out to Brendan if you're listening. And we talked about this movie briefly.
Oh, nice. And what was his little take?
He's on board with that whole trip of it being like really intense and sleazy and kind of uncomfortable.
Yes. And shout out to Rennie, our friend Rennie Rosmini, the fourth Beatle here at Necromaniacs podcast. Pretty much all of our instincts about that ending, that kind of cruising ending, was right, because on the like the audio on the DVD, like I'm forgetting what that's called, not the director's, the director talked on DVD commentary track. Yes, on the commentary track, he says that he wasn't inspired by Friedkin's Cruising, and that's one of his favorite movies, and yada yada yada. So yeah, it was definite the cruising inspired ending, just like we thought. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was a very interesting episode. And I want to say the Land of the Dead episode that you did with Jeff, Mike, was also a lot of fun. And of course, Romero is a Hall of Famer here at Necromaniacs. We've covered, I don't know, 4 or 5 of his films at this point, huh?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And Sherman is gaining ground on him.
He sure is. Now it's funny. This movie, Mike has mentioned this movie. I feel like on the podcast, he's definitely mentioned it to me in person over the years as a movie I should check out. But for some reason, I never did. And honestly, I feel like this movie was always brought up when covering the 2 other Gary Sherman movies, obviously, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think that might have been where we referenced this for sure.
Mm-hmm. Because this is his first. It's his first film from 1972.
Yeah.
What's interesting though is that he's an American, and this is well a British film. We have an American director directing a British film in the UK, shot in the UK. And like a lot of interesting 70s movies, it needed a cooler name, I guess, when it came here. Death Line, 2 words was not good enough for the old distributors in the USA in the early 70s, huh?
Nah, they needed something like more blood and guts, I guess, to grab the
Yeah,
potential
exactly.
listeners.
Right.
Yeah,
Like raw meat, It's like, here we go. Here's your raw meat. And the poster, like the raw meat poster, is, I'm going to say, a bit misleading, Mike. It's a little misleading. Little.
yeah, a little bit.
It's
Yeah.
not a little bit. It's a cool poster, though. It is a very cool poster. But a lot of 70s movie posters are a little misleading. Anyway, yeah. Um, of note here, folks, another reason to really kind of check this movie out is that it's got Halloween's own Donald Pleasance in it and an appearance from the legend himself, Christopher Lee. Right, Mike?
Yeah, and apparently Christopher Lee wanted to work with Pleasance.
Hmm.
And ironically, they were kind of in the same scene, but they were not actually working together.
Yeah, I mean, all right, cat out of the bag. Christopher Lee's scene in this movie is about 3 seconds long. It's a minute. It's really, really short. He plays Stratton Villiers MI5, which I think that whole MI thing is UK police jargon, I would say.
Yeah, he's some
Uh,
kind of like investigator, and Pleasance is
yeah,
like like a down and dirty cop basically.
right, right. Um, yeah, it says it was a co-production between the United Kingdom and the United States, but it was filmed entirely in London. Um, had its premiere in on November 17th, 1972 in the UK, but was not seen in America until a whole year later, October 3rd, 1973. That's interesting, huh?
Yeah, that's happening right now. Actually, there's a film called Ennis, Maine, which it's like another one of these like abstract Cornish folk horror movies. That's
Hmm.
it's already been released in England, and it's coming out later this year at some point here in the States.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the rough plot here is 2 university students find themselves at the center of an investigation involving a man who goes missing on the London Underground. Yeah, I mean, the good crux of this movie is filmed on the old London subway,
I
the
believe
tube,
I believe
as
they
they
call it the
say.
Tube. Yes.
On the tube, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, and like I said, we've got Donald Pleasance in this movie as Inspector Calhoun. We'll run down the cast a little more. We have Norman Rossington as Detective Sergeant Rogers, David Ladd as the American chap, Alex Campbell, Sharon Gurney as Patricia Wilson, Hugh Armstrong as the cannibal, also credited as the man, and June Turner as the dying cannibal, A.K.A. the woman. And we've got Christopher Lee. as Stratton Villiers, MI5. Um, Mike, this movie for a little bit reminds me of Argento's Bird with Crystal Plumage for some reason. Like mainly because of the whole American boyfriend living in the foreign city with the foreign girlfriend thing going on.
Yeah,
That's what it
that
reminds me.
definitely there's like an Italian, like a Gialli kind of thing going on with this guy, and he's from New York too. He makes a point out of
Yeah,
saying
it
he's
was
from New York.
like now that was like 69. And I'm even wondering if like Gary Sherman actually, I mean, who knows? I feel like a lot of American directors did not see some of these, you know, important Italian films until later on, like, but maybe he did see it because it did have a US theatrical run, Bird with Crystal Plumage. But the whole beginning, and even in their apartment, like it almost like looks like it's like this little apartment and it's got like, it totally reminds me of Argento's Bird, Mike. I
And
was like,
even
oh, wow.
Sharon Gurney, though she's a Brit, clearly.
Mhm.
I don't know. She has like that look that would be like in an Argento film. You know what I mean?
Yes, she looks like a girl in kind of like in any number of 70s Giallo films. Yes,
Yeah.
she does. Interesting. Very interesting.
One of the things I thought was really funny is that Pleasance plays Inspector Calhoun, who's like a working class guy. He's kind of this like city street cop.
Hmm.
And when he goes into his office in one of the early scenes, and he kind of disparages his assistant for giving him tea with a tea bag.
Yes. There's
So
like that, it's like got that weird tea bag thing going on. It happens several times throughout the movie. He has to
yeah,
get the tea bag out of the fucking tea.
so I immediately messaged my friend Sophie, who's British, and I was like, "What's up with the tea in England? I thought you guys use tea bags, or to use those tea balls or whatever." And
Hmm.
she confirmed with me that by and large, people use the tea bag in England. So I don't
Hmm.
know. This guy was like this, had this elitist. Maybe that was like his quirk. You know what I mean?
I think it was that once the tea bag has served its purpose, it has to immediately be out of the cup. Is that kind of what's going on?
I think so. Or just even the fact that she used a tea bag was unsavory to him. It seems like. I don't
I
know.
see.
Anyone out there
Interesting.
who's British want to comment on that? Please feel free. Use our call line if you want.
Yeah, use the hotline. Um, so yeah, I mean, while we're not going to go beat by beat, it's important to point out in the beginning of the film, there's this man who, kind of like well-to-do-ish man, right? Who goes missing under the subway cavernous caves of London. But before he goes missing, he kind of like he approaches a girl who he thinks is like a prostitute, right?
Actually, even before that, the intro, the credit sequence in this movie is fucking long, man. Did you
Yeah.
notice
Oh
that?
my God, it's really long, and the music is it's kind of very loud,
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, it's
And I
mixed real
noticed that
loud.
like it almost doesn't even seem like it fits 1972. I mean, it's kind of very 70s in a way, but it almost feels like it's like, what is this music? It's weird. The movie itself, like, okay, I'm a fan of that band Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats.
Right.
This movie is definitely a movie that those guys like. I have a funny feeling.
Oh
There's
yeah.
something about this movie that's, I think, very unmistakably 70s London, and that beginning what gave me like Uncle Acid and the Deadbeats vibes.
Shout out to John Charn Rice, drummer of Uncle Acid. Cheers.
Ah,
But
okay. You
yeah, I could see that, man, for sure. And so this super long title sequence with this like cranked music and
mm,
real groovy though. The music's
yeah,
good,
yeah.
very groovy. It kind of
It's
goes through
very
this like
weird.
London
Mm,
underbelly, kind of scene. Like there's a lot of like sleazy shit in the beginning, like strip clubs and porno
Yeah.
stuff. You know what I mean?
But it's almost like they only had so much money. Like they kind of didn't show a lot of that. Like, right? The movie is very confined to like to just a few places. And I felt like they didn't really show much of London. Like, did you think so?
No, they just showed the inside of like some adult bookstores and some,
Yeah,
like posters of like scantily clad women and that kind of thing.
right. I mean, the majority of the film is, under the train, so to speak, and in a police station or in the apartment of the two main characters. Like that's the movie. I
Yeah.
felt like, you know,
So Manfred, James Manfred, he's down in the tube, and there's this poor lady there with a raincoat that he just assumes is a prostitute.
yeah, I don't think she was.
He just like the sketchiest part of the movie is you see him say something to her, but it's not audible, and
Mm,
and she's like offended by it. You know what I mean?
right.
Like what a cad this guy is.
Yeah, he was a cad. And then, a few moments later, he's like getting accosted by we'll call him, the cannibal, the man, and kind of pulled into the lair. Yeah, that when they reveal that lair, that was a really sick scene.
Dude, that for 1972, right? Like we
Mm,
were talking about this a little bit. How 68 you had Night of the Living Dead, and then this movie came out a few years later. It's on par with the disturbing factor. Like if it was 1972 and I saw this movie, there would be some like really shocking, bleak imagery in this movie.
mm. Yeah, I felt the same. I mean, by I mean, this movie might have been filmed throughout 72 or maybe even 71. Who knows? It's kind of before a lot of the really, you know, over the top shit. Like, really? Like, I mean, Night of the Living Dead has happened, and this is kind of almost like before Last House on the Left, or like right at the same
Yeah.
time.
Or
And it's
like
a little
even
bit,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre was what,
yeah, it's a
74?
little before Texas, right? It's
Yeah.
before, you know. Um, so yeah, I mean, props to Gary Sherman for kind of like being a little bit ahead of the curve with the imagery and the vibes, right?
And also just in addition to all that, even though Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Night of the Living Dead, those are, great movies, Last House on the Left. This movie in a lot of ways has a higher caliber of acting going on in it too, you know?
It does. Yeah. Like Donald Pleasance has 80 million movies under his belt already by 72. And I mean, he's a great actor. He's a great character actor, and he's, pretty serious guy. And the guy who plays Detective Sergeant Rogers, Norman Rossington, he's also quite good, honestly. What did you think of David Ladd, the American Alex Campbell?
I thought he was great actually, just because he had like that, like whenever you see a movie in the 70s with like a sort of lefty college student who's from New York,
Hmm.
he might have like
That
been one of these like eat like village, guys, like
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of him.
he kind
Yeah.
of nailed it, I thought. He had the long hair, like his voice, like everything, like even when he comments when they find the body, you know, and like his
Hmm.
his girlfriend thought this dude was like some kind of vagrant or whatever, and she was like surprised, and he was like, in New York we'd step over guys like this, and I was like, yeah, that's about right.
Now, I had to ask about him in particular because, as a bit of an aside, Roger Ebert reviewed this movie right back in then, and gave it a favorable review. It says a good debut, undermined by several vast improbabilities in the script and the painfully inept performance of one of its leads, David Ladd. He didn't like David Ladd.
Really, I
Yeah.
didn't. I just do. I think he was at the very least he did an adequate job acting. But I thought he was good, convincing.
Yeah, me too. I thought that that was interesting. I mean, you never know. Like, Ebert has these little curveballs in his reviews sometimes. Kind of funny.
And he's in a
But
lot of the movie. Like he's like kind of carries his side of the fence in this movie. You know what I mean?
yeah, and it is interesting. Like his role was like a staple of the late '60s, early '70s. There was always this American guy who, again, usually from New York, no other state usually, a New Yorker that's in either Rome or in England or wherever, that, kind of this young hip college guy dealing with what the hell's going on in the movie.
And there's a right away. There's a clash between Calhoun and Alex Campbell because Calhoun's this like very conservative, very working class, like salt of the earth, like street cop, and he doesn't like Alex. He doesn't like the cut of his jib at all. You know what I mean? When he rolls up to his to give his statement, he immediately sizing him up. He's discrediting
Well,
him
he, he,
somewhat.
he actually thinks that instead of the couple just finding the man who was injured, the man who, the cad, so to speak, they think that he robbed them.
Yeah, exactly.
He thinks that they robbed him. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And that's that
Initially,
that's that cop mind. You know what I mean? It's just it's like let me try to wrap this up as fast as possible. I'm going to try to pin the crime on the number one witness I have.
yeah, these young filthy hippies, they probably did it. Meanwhile, they literally wanted to help more than the cop that they went to initially. Like, it's funny, like they're like, the woman says to him, but that we care here. This isn't New York. Nobody fucking cared.
Now
Like
you get the
never.
impression too that Manfred is kind of like part of the elite. I would say. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like someone
Right.
who would probably be able to get away with a lot within the city,
Hmm.
and that's why Christopher Lee's character is involved in this investigation.
Right. Exactly. There's that great reveal when we get to see like the monster's underground lair, the cannibals' underground lair, and we basically learn that back in the day, in the 1890s, um, you know, these people who worked the caves, I guess, who helped make the railroads, so to speak, right?
The tube, yeah,
Uh, they kind of got like stuck down there and they resorted to cannibalism. I mean, it's a little far-fetched,
yeah. But
I
how
mean,
many times have you heard that story that's like a well used trope in horror fiction.
right. They're like a group of descendants who survived an 1892 cave-in down there, and these are the last surviving members. We have the main guy doing the killing, actor Hugh Armstrong, and we see that he has a cannibal woman down there with him, played by actress June Turner, and she is pregnant and she dies, which sends him into a fit of rage. I mean, not that he's already not killing and eating people who come across his way, but he kills three maintenance workers in a very interesting scene, huh, Mike?
Yeah, yeah. It's brutal, man. And he gets
Mm.
smacked in the head and with like a broom handle or whatever, and like it's just the whole thing. It is very bleak feeling, And there's like this violent, just like grimy like feel to the whole thing with the cannibals.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
In a way, you almost have some pathos for him too. You look at him as this like unfortunate, this person that's resigned to this life of living in the tunnels,
Mm.
and he's like
Yeah, I
a
mean, you
descendant of the
feel
original
empathy.
people, right? So he's probably inbred and all weird and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you do feel empathy, to a degree. Is eating people. Um, so yeah, I mean, but again, I think the movie has like this cool kind of dark early 70s British atmosphere that I guess I'm kind of a sucker for.
Well, me too. It's like you can see where there's like a Hammer influence. There's an
Hmm. A
Italian
little bit.
giallo
Hmm.
influence,
Yep.
and then it's like some new shit, like the violence and the darkness of it. Like
No,
that's
totally,
a new
totally.
thing for that period of time. Is this how dark this movie is?
I agree. Like as I was saying before, I think it was a little bit ahead of its time. And what's interesting is that the Hugh Armstrong cannibal role was going to be played by Marlon Brando.
Yes.
But he backed out because it was around the time when his son Christian became ill with pneumonia. Can you imagine if Marlon Brando was in this movie? I mean,
I gotta
I
be
guess it would
honest.
be
I can't.
elevated. No, I can't either. It would have been elevated to quite a different, level of film. And we're talking about the brief Christopher Lee moment. He did the movie for scale. He just wanted to work with Donald Pleasance. But despite that, they don't even share much screen time together due to the height difference. According to Wikipedia, it says director Gary Sherman kept them in separate shots until Lee sits down at the end of his scene so that now he would not have any trouble fitting the two actors in the same frame. That's some 70s shit, huh?
Yeah. How much of a badass is Christopher Lee?
Oh, he's great. Yeah,
Yeah. He's like you know how nowadays all the like real men are these British guys like
pretty
in
much.
cinema.
Yeah, or Australian or
Yeah. He
mhm.
he was like the first of those guys who can hang with like a James Caan or something, like but different. He was like this
Yeah, he was kind
physical.
of like he was the classy horror guy. Like he was the horror guy that kind of elevated the movie. I mean, along with look, Vincent Price and a small handful of actors back in the day that if you saw they were in the movie, you knew it might have been a better movie just because they were in it.
Yeah, yeah, and also just Christopher Lee is like this tall physical guy. Like he has like this presence too, which is great. I'm a fan. I love all of his Hammer horror films. Of course, he was incredible in Wicker Man, all that stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. You know what I've never seen, and he did several of them. His Fu Manchu films, which I've heard are actually pretty good.
Yeah,
You
I've
ever see
seen
any of
I've seen
those?
those like when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. I think Blue Underground put a bunch of them out a while ago, and I believe you can still check them out. There might have even been a box set of those movies, if I'm
Oh,
not
that'll
mistaken.
be something to look out for.
Yes, yes. But yeah, if you're looking for a lot of screen time with the two actors, well, you're not going to find it here. But it's cool that Lee is in the movie briefly, nonetheless. And we were talking about how it's kind of hard style for like 72, and sure enough, there were edits to avoid an X rating back then. I mean, to me, nothing in this movie warrants an X rating, but I'm sure back then they might have been like, this is a bit much here.
No doubt. I think that in 1972, there's quite a bit in here. I think there's even a breast in this movie, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not again. I, to me, Last House and Texas are way more, fucked up than this movie. This movie, I think the fucked upness is a bit more subtle. You know?
But Last House did have an X rating at one point, though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, you know, at one point there's like four versions of that movie due to cuts. It's pretty crazy story. Um, but yeah, the movie premiered in London November 17th as a double bill with a movie called The Triple Echo. Then makes its way to the U.S. under the title Raw Meat on October 3rd, 1973. It was edited to get to America to avoid the X rating. The distributor was, of course, American International Pictures. Um, in LA, it played alongside the comedy horror film Cannibal Girls. which I guess was an interesting pairing, using the title Raw Meat and that poster. But I don't know. I think if I saw the movie back then, I would be like, I don't know, this is quite a different movie than what's being advertised here.
Yeah, a little, exploitative, I would say.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. Um, for a while, you couldn't really find this movie on DVD until the early 2000s. It came out on an MGM DVD. Uh, then in 2011, it was re-released as a six-film set on MGM with movies like Pumpkinhead, Dolls, Scarecrows, and Sometimes They Come Back. It makes no sense to pair that with these movies. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers was also paired on that combo. Odd number of movies there. But it was not, of course, until June of 2017 when Blue Underground released it as a collector's edition Blu-ray DVD combo pack. I would like to check it out. I kind of would like to see some more behind the scenes shit of this movie, Mike.
100%. Me too.
I have a funny feeling the Blue Underground version probably has some cool interviews at the very least with the director, and Gary Sherman has had his other shit. Dead and Buried came out on Blue Underground, so I bet you it's a nice little package there.
As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to look for that. It's on Shutter right now. So you guys,
okay.
If you want the screaming streaming version of this, you can stream it on Shutter right now. Yeah.
The streaming version. Oh, very, very horrific of you, Mike, for the horror podcast. But yeah, this is, I don't know. I feel like a lot of our listeners would enjoy this. I don't know if they'd be over the moon for it, some of them. I myself enjoyed the movie. I don't know if it's a movie I would watch over and over again, though. What about you?
Well, it's just bleak and depressing, sort of. But I have watched this movie several times, so I think it, for me at least, and also the possibility of having good extras, a Blu-ray purchase maybe in order.
Yeah. So yeah, Mike, on our scale of 1 to 5, what would you give Deathline, A.K.A. Raw Meat?
Personally, I give it a 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see that. I give it a 3.5 with a bullet. I would say see this film. I enjoyed this film. I don't know if I wasn't like over the moon with this film. It was cool, definitely worth seeing. Worth the 90 whatever minutes of your time.
87 minutes.
87 minutes. Yeah, it's kind of a short movie actually.
Yeah.
But, and again, I could see why like Blue Underground put it out, and I could see how it's in a way kind of an important British horror film.
Undoubtedly, I'd list this as a British film, important British horror film for a number of reasons. Number one, just the extremity of it, how brutal and dark it is. And also the acting level is very high. It's got these like really legit actors in it. And it came out before the era of the video nasties, which started technically in 1982.
Yeah. It's, again, like, not only, like I said, it's pre-video nasty, but to me, I almost feel like it's pre the real horror explosion in America, which comes just right after it, I think,
Yeah, it's on the leading edge of that,
It's on the cusp. Yes,
yeah,
it's definitely on the cusp.
So for that reason alone, it's definitely worth, for the serious horror fan, it's definitely worth checking out.
No, totally. But it's interesting. We've been doing some more older fare in the last weeks, which is fine. We've covered Skinamarink, and we've covered The Menu this year, and The Pale Eye, and we squeezed in bones and all. Like we're trying to get. We got those late to the game kind of 2022 films. Um, for 2023 though, as we're into March, is there anything that's like you're really excited about that you've heard about or that has kind of caught your eye that something that we may check out?
Well, I'll tell you what I didn't like. I didn't like the Outwaters. That was number one.
Uh-huh. Yes.
And that's a new film. I particularly feel passionate about it because it looked like something I would really enjoy, and I was completely fooled into seeing it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what I am looking forward to is Ennis, Maine, which I talked about a little bit earlier, where it's like one of these Cornish horror, British folk horror kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly has like this very kind of abstract storytelling quality to it. It's very meditative, and there's parts of it's. I have a feeling it's not going to be a movie that's for everyone, but it has my name written all over it. People have likened it to Seder, which was like one of my favorite movies of the year, with the year it came out.
Yeah, Seder, great, man. That was a great movie.
So that's kind of just in the discussions I've had with people who've seen it over in Europe. That's what they've said. So I'm like, all right, this is definitely the kind of thing I would be into. So that's coming out soon in the States.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to see that as well. I keep hearing good things about Scream, Mike.
You're not the. I've heard that from so many people, man, and maybe I got to check it out.
Yeah, well, I think I'm gonna check it out, and I'm gonna check out the prior one, which I also heard was pretty good.
Yeah,
The one from a year or so ago.
I should stop sleeping on those. I think.
Yeah. Um, it's funny, like I believe I don't know if it was my brother John. I think it was John. He said the whole movie is filmed in New York, but it doesn't look like it's filmed in New York. He said he's like he's wondering what part of New York it was filmed in because he said it didn't seem recognizable, and he goes maybe that was on purpose to be not recognizable New York. I'm like, that's interesting. So that piqued my interest, you know,
Huh.
quite a bit. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. Well, there's some
that doesn't look like New York.
there's some subway scenes. I know that from
Right.
the trailer.
Yeah, yeah. I'm wondering. Curious now. But who knows? I mean, yeah, the year is still quite new, and I think I sometimes I get like these little brain farts when I'm in the moment doing the show as to, oh, what horror movies am I looking forward to in the next 9 months? Like I don't have a fucking answer, you know?
Did you? I know Jeff saw Megan. Have you seen it?
Yes, I did see Megan, and it was good.
Okay.
It was not wasn't terrible. It was good. It was a definite 3 to 3.5 movie. Like, three, definitely like a solid three movie for me. It was interesting.
Well, it's out there
Um,
now, right? It's out there on the
yeah, yeah.
okay,
I think I saw it on Peacock. Um,
on the cock.
Peacock.
Yeah.
Um, I think you should check it out. If you have the time, again, you have the 90 minutes. It's not terrible. It's not terrible. And it's like people compare it, is it as good as Child's Play? I think Child's Play is okay. Like I'm not a big Child's Play franchise person, to be honest. Um, I think that first movie is cool, and I mean, I just I don't know. I always thought it was a little silly, um, but it's Megan gets down, man. She does some killings, so it's pretty fun.
I'll check it out. Maybe that warrants some kind of episode about it. Maybe.
Yeah, the ending is odd. The ending just kind of it's one of those it just ends. Like I almost feel like they couldn't come up with a good ending, and then they made this particular ending the ending.
It's a James Wan movie, right?
Is it James Wan? Let's see. Um, I want to make sure. 2022 film directed by no Gerard Johnstone.
Oh, okay. I was way off then.
Yeah.
Also, there's the new Evil Dead, which is coming out.
Yes, I do want to see that. I know, the trailer is a little slick for some people. I think it looks interesting. I think it had some interesting scares in it, the trailer. I'm definitely going to see it. It's funny, like 2022, early 23 is the era of this movie cost nothing but made tons of dough. The budget on Megan was $12 million, and it has made $174 million.
Wow. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if studios can figure out, how to make something decent on the cheap, and it turns out to be a huge hit, then hey, man, that's fucking great. Oh, James Wan is part of the movie. He was a producer, and the story is by him. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw Gretel and Hansel recently, which surprisingly I enjoyed.
Now, what is that on?
That might be on Shudder as well.
Shudder? Okay, yeah, I want to check that out.
Yeah, Brandon recommended this a while back, and you can only watch so much, Mike. You know what I mean? And
no, I know. There's only so much time.
But I got around to it mainly due to his recommendation, and I got to say, man, it was a lot better. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I actually really liked it. There was some of it reminded me of almost imagery-wise like a Jodorowsky film. Like there's a lot of this like imagery in there that reminds me of like Holy Mountain or something like that. And there's very deep like folk horror kind of stuff, like pagan kind of shit in there too, which is cool.
I would definitely check that out.
It looks great, and there are definitely some good moments in it.
Awesome. All right, Mr. Hill.
Jeff didn't like it. I texted him about it.
Jeff didn't like it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, that happens from time to time. Sometimes he doesn't like a movie. Sometimes,
This is true.
I'm being facetious. You know what? That's the Jeff I like the best, when he doesn't like a movie. That's when it gets more interesting.
He definitely keeps it interesting, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, kids. That wraps up another episode of Necromaniacs podcast. Quick note: if you're an Apple listener, why don't you leave us a nice little review? If you are not already following us, please go ahead and hit the follow button on Spotify or Apple or Podbean. And we appreciate the support, right, Mike?
We certainly do, man. And definitely check us out on Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of jazz,
Exactly. Yes. And we will see you next time.
All right, guys. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.